The first topic that we had given to the teams was with regards to the controversy that how is affecting the indigenous tribal community. So the motion was the belief that indigenous communities should have veto power over mining projects on their ancestral land, even if it conflicts with the national economic. This was the first motion which was there. The second motion was with regards to the correlation between mining projects and the environmental or the ecological concerns. The second one was the House believes that the exploitation of rare earth minerals, which has been selected by the teams for this debate, is regarding the privatization of the mining sector. It is regarding the House supports full-scale privatization. So the two finalists that we have before us today is first is National Law University Odisha, and the second is we have the team from BIT Mesra. And the two batches that we have today is one is Adviti and the second is Akash. All the very best to everyone present here. Happy debating. With this, I would like, if everybody is ready, the Prime Minister can take the floor and start off with the debate.
Hello. Hello.
How will you tap? You have to bear it.
Yes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today's motion is the House supports full-scale privatization of the mining sector for economic efficiency and innovation. The House that the Prime Minister would like to set in this context is the Indian Parliament. The status quo which will be passed over here is the PPP, the private, public, and the partnership. Proceeding with the arguments, let's break down the key elements which are printed over here. The Indian Parliament has convened to deliberate on crucial legislation aimed at reforming the country's mining sector through comprehensive privatization, fostering economic efficiency, and encouraging innovations. These are the basic fundamental points that we'll be arguing here today. The first point is the comprehensive privatization. What is comprehensive privatization? If the Prime Minister needs to define it for the opposition over here, is the full shift of mining control from the government to the private hands. The second point, which is fostering economic efficiency. Now, what is economic efficiency over here? Economic efficiency refers to the boosting productivity and resource optimization, which was already stated over here, is the driving force which is required for the adoption of new technologies in today's day and age. The technological advancements which have been practiced over the few past years has been staggering for us. Now, why does the government want to do so? There are majorly 5 reasons why the government is supporting this motion. I would like to begin. The first one will be innovation inventions, or the incentives which are provided for the innovations, which the aiming at, the government over here is aiming at encouraging the private sector in a way that will help the growth and development of the R&D of the private sector companies that will see and the outcome of the mining sector as a whole. Second point, proceeding forward, we have free market competition. The free market will definitely not only just provide a basic level playing ground for the companies to operate on, but will also ensure that no deadweight losses are present, which will consume the product surplus handled by the private sector companies. Moving forward, we have the third and very important is we have to, as a nation, align with the global practices that are being practiced all throughout the globe. India, being a developed nation, needs to recognize the successful models which are being practiced by other nations, which have been already being which are already practicing vast amount of development in this particular field. And India needs to amplify this and incorporate such techniques in our infrastructure that will increase efficiency and innovation. Now the government will proceed to and also define the stakeholders which has been also left behind. I would apologize. And the stakeholders which are aiming at is the miners, the family of the miners which are being involved in the privatization of this particular field of mining, the citizens of the area which are living in the particular area which is under the mining contracts, the private owners and the biodiversity which is being affected, and also not ignoring the government aspect of it. We would like to produce a model before the opposition over there that is comprising of a certain set of frameworks that we have devised for the effective functioning of this particular style of privatization that we are aiming at. And it involves, first point is full-scale privatization, which will require the, may I please, attention for drivers. The full-scale privatization, as I would like to discuss over here, is it will require not only policy reforms that will encourage private participation in this field, but these also involve simplifying approval processes that will help enhance this particular area of mining sector. We need to devise a legal framework also for encompassing rules that will support ownership. The framework will also include the Mineral Laws Amendment Act, which is devised in the year 2020. This includes housing facilities for workers, health examination, regular intervals, safety of mines, minimum 130 days, as the aspect is being converted into. I hope the opposition understands this. And the next point that I would like to address for the committee is the asset identification, which is identification of the categories of mines. Now, we must understand there are different categories of mine, and we need to identify the different products and different varieties of India and categorize them as productivity, efficiency, and profits. We need to pay attention to such a particular field because if we gradually transition from the PPP model to a private sector model, it will be highly beneficial for our country because of few points that I would like to elaborate. Is we have to identify and mitigate potential risks which are present. That is why I'm stressing on the fact that there is a need of gradual transition and not immediate action because of the risk associated with privatization in this economy. Now, biodiversity is a very important name of the game right now, and we need to take care of it. And all efficient practices the government is planning to imbibe in our potential plan that will take care of the biodiversity and not hamper it during construction of mines in our country. And just to state a few, I would like to quote that PPE, which is the personal protective equipment, which need to be incorporated by the industry standards, and which involves something as simple as helmet safety goggles, gloves and safety tools which are required for the safety of the miners which are working in the deep mines. The next point is DGPS, which is differential global position system. We have automatic longwall mining, which is an advanced mining method which is remotely controlled by shearer extracts and ore, and which involves the manipulation of ore in a continuous process rather than taking it out of the ground immediately. Now, for conclusion, I would like to say that the government has devised a model which will, in fact, revolutionize the whole entire community if the motion is passed. Thank you.
पीछे से बोलने के लिए आराम से फूकने के लिए उसको प्लीज भी बोल रहा है चल रहा है तभी को डर देना पास से जो
Greetings everybody. My name is Sarvidas and I will be the Prime Minister, I will be the leader of operation for the operation side of today's video. And my speech will start in 3, 2 and 1. Before I begin, I would first of all like to begin with a general definition and defining the stakeholders and some of the concerns that we have with the motion that was presented today before presenting our constructive arguments. I would like to begin by saying that with the sole stakeholder that was provided by the government side, namely the mining workers, and we agree with them that they are a major stakeholder. We would just like to add a few more stakeholders that I think was missed out on the debate. The mining workers who are employed in the definitely the more primary stakeholder in this debate. The secondary stakeholder that I would identify, which is no less important, are the rights of the indigenous communities, the tribals, who are in tribal lands, who might be affected by the large-scale, full-scale privatization, as the motion states in today's debate. And also, third stakeholder, perhaps not as important but still necessary, is the future of the Indian mining industry. Now, having identified these three stakeholders, I would now like to proceed to my constructives and why we oppose the large-scale privatization program proposed by the government today. First of all, there is a need to define the term full-scale privatization. What exactly would it entail? Now, as the government Prime Minister clearly stated, you would agree with him once again that full-scale privatization would imply the transfer of ownership, the transfer of management, and the transfer of control of a public sector enterprise towards a private companies or private corporations and open it fully towards the private market. We oppose this motion, we oppose the plan of full-scale privatization for three major reasons only, because we identify three large dangers that are associated with the full-scale privatization program being implemented. The first danger is that the mining industry, as it stands today in India, is largely public owned, largely government owned, and it currently employs tens of millions of workers around the country. If the full-scale privatization program that is proposed by the government today's motion is implemented, it shall result in a humongous number of layoffs and firings of the existing public sector employees. There is no job security, or there is no plan that has been proposed for their security, and therefore it shall result in a lot of loss of livelihoods of the current public sector employees that are guaranteed employment by the government. It would result in lower jobs. It would result in a drastic cut in wages, as post-COVID India and indeed the global economic recession in the world has shown. There would also be a lack of accountability, because the dilapidated, laid-off workers will lose their bargaining power. Because a corporation is not directly accountable to the people as a government is. A corporation, a private corporation, or perhaps an MNC, a multinational corporation, operates primarily on the basis of maximizing profits and generating the maximum amount of revenue. They have no incentive for taking care of the biodiversity or taking care of the needs and the wants of the general public sector working class people, because they are not concerned with it. They don't have a mandate from the people. They are not there for this purpose. So it will be result in a lot of lack of accountability for any working class employee who has complaints with the management of the corporations, which will not exist if he can take these complaints to the government. The second major danger that we have identified with this full-scale privatization program is the drastic harm it would cause to the indigenous communities on whose lands these full-scale privatization programs will be implemented. Seeing as the house was set by the government in India, we can argue using the Indian legal lens The Forest Conservation Act of 1980 explicitly states that a land is, if the tribals have provides the use of forest land, is prohibited for any kind of industrial or mining purposes if the tribals are already inhabited in the land. This is a constitutional and executive provision. Article 29 of the Constitution provides for minority communities to safeguard their culture, and as you can know, that tribal communities, their culture is strongly associated with the land that they live in. Section 41 of the Land Acquisition Act specifies that as far as possible, no land acquisition shall be made in the scheduled areas. If it does take place, it should be done only as a demonstrable last resort, and at least 1/3 of compensation amount shall be paid to families as the first installment, and the rest shall be paid after the takeover. There is no incentive for the private corporations to care about this. This is a constitutional provision that the government can take care of if the people affected by this complain to them. But private companies, as we have seen through large-scale displacements of tribal communities across the country, there is no provision that a private company or a private corporation shall take care of that for them. Yes, please.
Don't you believe that mining as a profession is very dangerous, which is an incentive for the private people to take care of the employees in return for the private entities to take care of their employees in return, as it is there are not many miners that are employed, mining being a dangerous profession in return.
Sure, but it's what I said. If a private company is in power, they have through their policies of having a large of cutting off after they acquire the position, they can result in a large number of layoffs. They will have people competing for the jobs, and they can get away with offering lower wages, lower positions to government to not a bargaining power, because employees can have with the government in terms of trade unions or in terms of taking away their labor. But this will not be present in a scenario where there is full-scale privatization, because the company or another person wants to take his position and does not want to deal with the hassle. The third danger that we have identified with today's full-scale privatization program is the harm that it would cause to the Indian mining industry. It would lead to a weakening of a vital domestic sector, because foreign companies would be able to enter the market unbridled. Foreign MNC companies from first world developed countries would be able to acquire vital assets and operations in a sector which is quite crucial for a country's national interest. Therefore, we propose an alternative model in which the full-scale privatization program of the government will not be implemented. Instead, we propose partial privatization. Some part of this crucial sector, that is mining, will be reserved for private companies and corporations, and they are free to operate as they please. But some part would be kept by the government, considering the sector's importance. They can compete freely. The private sector can show its workings and can show its results. And if the private sector shows that it is worthy of having trust of the indigenous communities, of the workers, and it shows that it is responsible and can carry out this work responsibly as the government can, then we can perhaps in the future consider the plan of full-scale privatization once again. As it is, and as now, we don't think that we are ready for it. Thank you.
I will start by thanking the leader of opposition for agreeing to our plan of gradual transition to the private sector. Thank you, the leader of opposition, because the opposition also recognized that there is a need of privatization. And I would first like to refute the point that the leader of opposition made, that the three problems that they have pointed out. The first one, the leader of opposition stated that there will be humongous layoffs. I would like to remind the leader of opposition that mining is a profession where a lot of labor is not involved, because there are a specific set of people who specifically wish to work in the mining sector, because it includes health hazards. Similarly, whenever there has been a privatization, let's take the case of Air India, there wasn't a humongous layoff. Coming to accountability, our judiciary is well to take care of any accountability of a private firm. Even if a labor force has a problem, they are free to approach the courts, and if you say that the courts are expensive, then they are free to approach the district legal service authorities, which are doing a great work in the nation. Moving on, coming to the indigenous communities part, which the leader of opposition pointed out, that the government has not pointed out as a stakeholder.
the opposition maybe misheard, did not hear what the Prime Minister has said. The Prime Minister clearly mentioned as citizen area, we consider the indigenous people as our citizens of that area, hence they come there and they were included in the stakeholders that were mentioned. Moreover, coming to the articles and the acts that the leader of opposition mentioned, all of these are binding for the private companies as well. If they do not follow them, then we have courts of law which can, where person, a labor can go and challenge, and they are always supported by the legal service authorities, as I mentioned. The third problem that they mentioned was how crucial the mining industry is. That is the very reason for privatization. Because the crucial importance of the mining industry requires a lot of efficiency that the PSUs are not able to come up to. This full-scale privatization will actually improve the capacity of the workers because there will be technological innovation by the private companies, as well as it will improve the lifestyle because they will still have to follow the Mines Regulation Act 2020. Moreover, this privatization will have further benefits as well. This will allow a free competition of markets, which is by far the most efficient market. And coming to biodiversity, as well as disparity that the opposition might come up with. So the opposition should be reminded that the government has taken care of handling and reversing the Kuznets curve in both cases, which shows that there is an initial increase in disparity and initial decrease in environmental condition with development. However, since you have mentioned that adequate care to biodiversity needs to be given before we move to mining or development of a mine, therefore the Kuznets curve here stands reversed, thus ensuring a very stable environment for the indigenous people, the miners, their families. Moreover, this model should also include stakeholder consultation after asset identification, which the leader of opposition also mentioned that we should not use all lands and which we have acts against as well. That is what the asset identification, as the Prime Minister pointed out, focuses on. It focuses on how we need to identify which are the lands which have to be used for mines, because mining as an important industry and it leads to iron and steel, which leads to the backbone of the country, is something which contributes a lot to the economy as well. Additionally, this will lead to tech adoption and not just layoffs. It will lead to the skill enhancement of workers to work with tech and not work with old techs. This will also help us deal with the problems that we have stopped. We banned rat mining back in 2019. However, rat mining is still practiced in areas of illegal mining. When you have private technology entering in, the rat mining would not be needed by those people. They will rather adapt to technology and then work better. This, yes.
As you mentioned earlier in your speech, is it your position that a mining worker who has suffered in the acquisition by a private company should have put support the private company with lots of resources and money behind it?
As I mentioned, the private worker is legal volunteers of the district legal service very easily and get a solution in a shorter amount of time. Okay. Moreover, this also increases the entrepreneurial spirit of the people in the country who wish to enter the industry, and thus we can have entrepreneurs from people coming from the mining areas who understand the area better. This will also have a global trade situation across the country, because this will enable foreign direct investment, which is limited in a PPP mode or the mode that the opposition presented in their model that we made, because that will limit the funds coming in as a form of direct investment. And why we do not want to fit on PPP mode? Because PPP mode generally, in the case of mines, works in two cases: BOT or BOOT, that is build, operate, and transfer, or build, operate, own, and transfer. All of this requires a transfer in the end, which causes the incentive for a private company to go low. Additionally, what we need to work on is build the capacity of the regulatory bodies so that the privatization that we are proposing in a full scale does not go out of hand. And the gradual transition that the Prime Minister mentioned over a period of 15 to 30 years will help us go smoothly into the process and not quick and not cause a catastrophe in the industry. Additionally, we need to take care of risk mitigation that might arise out of the mines and the lives of the workers, which is why the Prime Minister mentioned the legal framework that ensures the security of the workers. The government is always committed to the security of the workers, their families, their children first, and that is why the government will continue to legislate on these matters. It is not that we are just giving away everything. The legislation still lands with with the Parliament of India, and that solves the problems that the leader of opposition has pointed out. Thus, to conclude, I would like to say that the model that the Prime Minister has presented is well equipped for scale transition to privatization in the mining sector, and that will help us grow economically efficiently. Thank you.
Greetings, panel. I am Shravali Patra and I'll be the deputy leader of opposition for today. And I'll start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. First of all, I want to address the government and start off that Mr. PM, we did not miss the point that you said this will be a gradual development towards complete privatization. But here the opposition stands and mentions that not complete privatization won't be there even in future, because there are certain problems that have come into our side. I would like to point it out to you. First off, we would start when the PM addressed the House and said that there have been global practices. Here I would like to ask the PM that is following global practices that important as compared to national security. Here I am talking about mines and minerals, something that can be an asset to an entire country. We use that to trade with other countries. It is an asset to a country. There has been global politics around this, and simply giving it entirely to the private organization won't be very helpful for the country itself. Because when you give it to the country, towards the private organizations, they are totally not concerned with the global politics. Why will what affects India's national interest affect be of importance to those private institutions? Because there are chances that those private institutions might not belong, not know. While those private institutions are not just limited to India, those companies might be international companies. And here it is also not only national security but also crisis management. Suppose in future when you are completely trusting those private people, at that time there is crisis, there is economic recession. At that time, what assets do we have? We might be having others, but minerals is one of the most important that we can trade off. So it is something over which we can have direct control, and these resources we can trade off. Other than that, I would like to point out that on what basis are you trusting this? Gradually. You just mentioned gradually. But what are the factors that you are considering before gradually trusting these people? Because again, in future, you never know. They might take monopoly of the entire thing. And there might be no transparency further going ahead, not now. And also no accountability. Again, there is a point of diversification. When what if a particular company wants to mine a particular mineral and not the other? How do you just make sure that these particular minerals have been mined? Again, about technology and innovation. It is not only that after complete privatization of the sector, there will be technology and innovation. When there is government, when the model that was presented by my leader of opposition, he mentioned about partial privatization. So in this model, we have technology and innovation, but at the same time we are maintaining accountability. Because after all, what is a government there for? Government is the one that is responsible to the people. Again, you spoke about if it's my company, won't I take care of my laborers? Yes, you might, but except for the taking protection for those laborers, there comes another factor, that is cost cutting. You might cut the cost, and then again there will be revolt and riot throughout the country. What about that? You are also challenging the internal stability of a country. On what basis are you doing that? Internal and external. Because you are giving away the most important factor, one of the most important field minerals to the private companies. And here the DPM came and he mentioned about the example of Air India and how they take care of their employees. Yes, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, they might be taking, but that doesn't justify that any other company coming up will do the same. That doesn't set a trend. Let India set a trend of partial um, privatization, and then let the globe follow us. Why should we go and follow the global trend, risking our national, external and internal security interest, everything? Here, I would like to point out some of the benefits of partial privatization, the structure that was introduced by the. It also includes revenue sharing, which will help again in growth of economic growth of the country, which is also helping the country in a way. It is not that there will be resources inequality, and let me finish. There are resources inequality or what kind of contract the private institutions are going to have with the government in the gradual period also that they are going to have. And even when there is full privatization, what kind of contract will the private institutions have with the government so that they... Can you stop the timer? I apologize for the power cut. We'll resume with the session shortly. how the environment will be protected. When you are with them, which our model suggests, it will be ensured. But after gradually you have complete privatization, how are you going to make sure, exactly what are you going to do to make sure that those people continue to do the same? Also, who are these people giving the resources to, right? These private institutions might give it to the elite people out there, whatever is high in demand, and they can prioritize the short-term goals over the long-term goals. And then again, if this leads to ozone harming in future, because you are not making sure that these people are continuing with that, then there will be no life. What about resources? And lastly, I would like to question the Deputy Prime Minister. Paralegal versus the entire corporate. Don't you think that's really unfair? Because just a paralegal in a district court versus a corporate which has 100 times the resources. Do you think a mining or a worker will win at any cost? With that, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
I'll start in 3, 2, and 1. So the opposition entirely failed to address one aspect of the motion, that is efficiency. Job security at the price of efficiency is not justified anywhere. If at all you have a job and you are feeling secure and not doing anything about it, that is in turn bringing down the nation at a global level, be it in any field, regardless of money. Alright? Secondly, I would like to state that if there are competitors in the mining field, like there is a saying, right? Competitors bring out the best in each other. So if at all they just said that the people won't be taken care of, the employment people won't be taken care of, I would like to state the example of, since we are debating about steel authorities, we would like to state the example of Jindal. If suppose Jindal is not treating their employees nicely, they would obviously tend to move to another private entity, like the sponsors of this event. They would move there. That's a very logical argument to say, believe me. That I am getting better facilities, I have the freedom to move there. In government binding contracts, your promotions are linear. In private organizations, your promotions will be exponential. Another point, which is one more incentive for the people to be efficient in their regard. Alright. There is one clash between the LO and the DPLO, which I would like to address. The LO clearly said that complete privatization won't be there immediately, but gradually as they gain the trust, we are okay with complete privatization. The DPLO straight away disregarded that point and paraphrased our points of gradual privatization in 15 years of time, which is hypocritical in its own sense. I don't understand what they were trying to do. Alright. Another thing which the opposition told us is that global politics is involved in mining, and that's a very important field. And I believe that politics being involved is making mining inefficient, and that is the motion entirely. So privatization will make us efficient in regard. So I do not get the gist. If privatization of these companies, this sector, is taking the national GDP higher, what's the issue? In a global spectrum, the status of the country is being improved. Also, they said that they talked about accountability. I believe no one in the nation comes above the law. And corporate world going against a private employee, I mean, come on. That just shows that you don't have faith in the fourth pillar of democracy, that is justice. So I would like to really conclude my argument, because one more argument was that they did not address our points about. Did not say that they said that we will be not taking care of the employees. I would like to say that in the Minerals Act of 2020 there are periodic revisions and surveys. So be it a private or a government entity, everyone has to follow acts. So that is also something which we wanted to address. Thank you. How much time is left? 4 minutes. 2 minutes. Alright, I'll yield to you guys. Thank you.
Greetings everyone. I am Roshan Kumar Bhera and I will be the operation head. Firstly, I'll tell you how the government beautifully played present arguments and showed irregularities in the total speech, and how our side completely dismantled every point raised by the other side. Firstly, the PM came up and discussed and defined the comprehensive privatization, which is transfer of ownership, which we agreed. But never mentioned about the PM also told about the innovation. The requirements of privatization are told about innovation, but subsequently told about the repercussion that will be faced. They told about the global practices and different models in different countries that should be adopted in India, but they failed to understand that every country has their own demography and the same model doesn't apply to every country. They mentioned about the stakeholder of biodiversity, but failed to address what are the concerns of biodiversity in their speeches. In the end, they told a bit of biodiversity that was not even a concern. They told about the legal framework that would be constituted, but who would be the members of the legal framework? How would you assure that the influence of the private companies would not be included in the legal framework? How would you ensure the transparency? You never mentioned about that. They told about the risk hazards, but how do you ensure the risk hazards will be countered? How do you ensure? You never mentioned about the risk hazards elaborately about what are the risk hazards that will be encountered by your model. Coming to the leader of opposition, came to the stage and added the minimum requirement stakeholders of rights of indigenous communities and the future of mining industries. The leader of opposition told about the dangers of privatization, which include employment, which the first danger that was mentioned by the leader of opposition was employment, which would affected as the primary motive of the privatization. The private individuals would be to earn profit. And in order to earn profit, they would do the practice of cost cutting. They would lay off the individuals, they lay off the employees. The second danger was the tribals. The second danger was the violation of the laws of the tribal that are safeguarded by the legislations and the articles that were presented by the leader of opposition. The leader of opposition provided legislations and provisions that are indispensable of the debate to the debate, and thus the government stands on a shaky ground for these arguments. Coming on to the deputy prime minister, The Deputy Prime Minister told that a lot of laborers are not involved in mining sector, which is completely baseless. Mining is a labor-intensive practice which the government should have taken into consideration. It would increase the capacity of workers. They told about the increase the capacity of the workers, but without any backing, how would that increase the capacity or inefficiency? They told about asset identification, but never mentioned how they would identify the assets, who would identify the assets, and did not give any logical explanation. Rather, told about the technological advancement that would be the result of this identification. The new point which was introduced was by the entrepreneurs. They told that the entrepreneurs would be motivated by privatization, but how? What if the repercussions are not positive? What if the tribal life were harmed? And what if the moral grounds are hampered by this method of privatization? Again, the DPM failed to mention about the biodiversity, even if it was a major stakeholder of the debate. They told about approaching the court, but how would a poor person who is earning to fulfill his basic needs approach a court and fight against a corporate? Lastly, I would like to present a in the best case scenario of the government, India advances in the field of technology and innovation with short-term goals and gains, while resulting in undermined rights of working class people. Whereas even if in our worst case scenario, India misses the window of influx of technological innovation by a few years, but with the protection of rights of the workers, which are the major stakeholders of the debate. With that, I would like to conclude my speech. Thank you.
Greetings, madam. I would like to were given by the government in today's debate, including saying that associated with full-scale privatization, because there are a number of acts and laws and legal recourses that people have, and how these acts will prevent any kind of exploitation. Well, we have hundreds of acts and laws in the country relating to hundreds of issues, but not everyone follows them, which is why there even exists a legal system in the first place. It is really touching how much faith the government has in private companies and corporations, how much faith they have in the billionaire sitting in his plush, comfortable office on his cushion, that he is as concerned with the well-being of minimum wage workers. They have this misplaced, who knows what trust or where they got it from, that they have in that the private corporations and heads would care as much about the well-being of workers as opposed to their own profits and own revenue. Another interesting comment made by the DPM was that mining is not a labor-intensive practice. It is quite hazardous. It is a hazardous field, and therefore a person would choose not to work in the mining sector, but instead look for other lucrative, easy jobs. Of course, it is. We all know it is so easy to look for jobs, and it is so easy to choose a job to your own liking. It is not. It's not as if it's a very. There exists in the country a situation which is so dire that a person will be forced to choose a hazardous industry simply to make his living, his ends meet. As we have presented to you again throughout this debate, our worldview fulfills the needs of every single stakeholder we mentioned. I was quite surprised when the DPM came and said that, and cavalierly brushed aside the concerns of the indigenous communities by saying they are included in the regular citizens of the country. Not every single citizen will be as adversely affected by full-scale privatization as the indigenous communities will be. So for them to cavalierly brush aside the concerns of the indigenous community by saying that they are just another citizen fills us with even more apprehension. I'm sure that the sophistry of the opposition whip will not go unnoticed by the panel when he said that I, being the fellow, came and said that in a few years when private companies show that they are trustworthy and are reliable, then we will agree to full-scale. We should definitely have full-scale privatization in the future. As you can see in our worldview, we have the exclusive benefit of fulfilling the needs of every single stakeholder, of managing both efficiency and job security through the program of partial privatization and gradually going on the path by securing the rights and needs of the workers and securing the rights and needs of national technology and efficiency. Their worldview instead has the exclusive harm of damaging the rights of public sector employees, damaging the rights of indigenous communities who will be adversely affected by large-scale private acquisition, and indeed the future of the Indian mining industry when it will be open to competition and vulturing by foreign MNCs as well. And as was shown by my whip in the best case, worst case scenario, our goal is clearly one which helps in managing the rights of the stakeholders to the largest extent possible in a much better way. With this, I would like to conclude. I would just like to say in the few time I have left, unrelated to the debate, I had nothing to do with the name of our team.
Products of a leak. Are you sure? I'm able to read the products of a leak.
I'll start in 3, 2, 1. To start off, I regret the failure of the opposition to understand both the government and their teammates' arguments. The opposition has been confused over their own arguments. We saw the deputy leader and then the whip coming in who misstated their own facts and they misstated our facts as well. The DLO started off with talking about that that they actually heard the gradual thing, and I mentioned about not hearing the gradual thing. The opposition, I would like to remind you that during my speech, I clearly mentioned that you did not hear the stakeholders part, wherein the indigenous people who are considered as citizens of the nation have been missed, and additionally, the gradual part, I thank the leader of opposition for mentioning it. Additionally, as they have been saying that there is a common employee might not be able to achieve success in support. I would like to say that paralegal volunteers have a lot of work that they can do with support of the legal service authorities to ensure rights of every individual, not just mining employees. And I never said that mining is not a labor-intensive industry. I said that people choose not to go into mining just because of health reasons. There are people from the same reputed families and same reputed areas who move into mining. Additionally, the arguments of the opposition whip have been based on just 2 words. What if? And wherein we see that the opposition whip mentioned that the Deputy Prime Minister did not mention about biodiversity and legal frameworks. I would like to remind the opposition is the part of the parliament which legislates some law that provides for a legal framework, and biodiversity was equally covered as your leader himself mentioned the laws which I replied to that these laws are binding on private corporations as well. Coming to the process of asset identification, of course, these are works taken by scientists that the government has under the Department of Science and Technology, so that the identification is correct and precise. Additionally, I fail to understand how the opposition does not understand that a technology-enabled employee, a technology-enabled labor force is always more efficient than a labor force without technology, which is the current situation. With the advent of private sector in the mining economy, there will be additional technological advancement and they will be equipped with technology. Additionally, the benefit that the opposition mentions about partial privatization and confuse it with the gradual time being, they say that we will be open for discussion. However, if you are agreeing to partial privatization, that still says that you will be open to complete privatization later because of its benefits under economic efficiency. If you do a cost and benefit analysis of the situation at hand, we come to know that the probable cost which the opposition fails to, and they undermine the benefits that will come out of this process as a whole. They undermine how the economy will move to an efficient place with the quality of life of workers increasing the conditions of our minds bettering, and we getting a more efficient economy which can be measured using our GDP per capita. I am sure that if the government proposition passes, we will move towards growth and development for all our citizens. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope I'm audible to everyone. So before starting off with the review and the entire analysis of how I feel the debate went, I'd like to congratulate every team who's over here, because I feel like this was a very great learning process for every one of us. And I feel like, if not anything, we have gained a lot of acceptance towards various perspectives of various different things. And thanks to the organizing committee that they incorporated various themes that embodied various aspects of today's society that needed to be talked about. Secondly, I would like to say congratulations to the finalists, because you two, I've seen, like, one is that I'm from, and the other I've adjudicated for the last couple of debates and also now this one. So I've seen you both gradually grow, and especially commending about the entire tournament, like absolutely phenomenal. And I have seen that gradual growth that came along with every single debate that you participated in. So as for the finals, how I understood and viewed the final, it was a very intense match with a very intense topic, privatization, which has been in discussion over the last couple of years, and to what the government and the Indian Parliament stands of today has been what today's debaters have stood for. So the debate was very in time that everyone got to know what their role was, and they fulfilled their role to the fullest. So starting off with the Prime Minister, the elaborate and which you elaborate on efficiency and innovation, and then elaborating about how this is actually what you want to achieve. Then how the you backed it with a very strong thing that had been consecutively and reiterated throughout the debate. That was the legal framework, which you really smartly incorporated and used against your opposition. You have given a bit of the start as to how your stance stands for the debate. Like, you started off by countering them. I feel like you could have given a solid start to your team and then started countering, which would have made it better. You although proposed the model later up in the speech, but I feel like giving your stance as to why you are against this topic would have given a very clear idea as to where the opposition stands. So I feel that was just lacking. Like, the entire model and the point of the dangers of full-scale privatization was absolutely phenomenal. Like, every single point, be it from existing public sector employees to lower jobs and wages, to have accountability, the indigenous community, especially backing every single point with facts and articles, was a great job that you did over there. Moving on to the Deputy Prime Minister. So the Deputy Prime Minister smartly started off his speech by tackling off the leader of the opposition, both the models and the drawbacks of the model that was presented by the leader of the opposition, also encompassing the drawbacks that the current scenario has, like what exactly are the drawbacks which brings about the full-scale privatization into action. Then the deputy leader of the opposition came in, and again, this one particular clash that I would like to bring upon to everyone's notice, that was the talk about gradual plan. Like, I feel like a bit more definition about the gradual plan from either of the sides could have held upon and added up to the debate. But this was the major clash which I feel was taken into account by both the teams. So, and the private sector's interests might not align. Then came the point of the transparency and monopoly, which could have been elaborated a lot more. Like, I feel an entire set of arguments could have been brought about in this point and could have been a very strong backing point for you guys against them. Then you came back to your model and added about how the internal and external factor came into play and the role of international stakeholders and the MNCs. Moving to the government whip, again the government whip came in. One thing I noticed in this debate was the use of wit. So yeah, that was something really commendable. So the government whip came in and smartly and wittingly started off with one point. I feel like that was a new point which wasn't supposed to exactly taken into account, but I just mentioned it was about efficiency. Because efficiency hadn't been talked about in either of these speeches. It had been mentioned by the speaker, the Prime Minister, but I feel like it still stands true that it was a new point. Then you brought about tackling the points of the opposition. So you again brought about the most major and the most talked about debatable point, that was the gradual point. So again you said that okay, they are contradicting themselves and okay, yeah. So I would take that into account and that was very wittingly said. Then the point about accountability and the periodic revision and survey came into play, which I feel was a great addition to the debate and greatly back for the government. Then the opposition whip, again, like I've seen this guy play the role of whip for the last two debates. And the way this guy structures his debate, taking into account every speaker and what they spoke and trying to tackle every single point just by mentioning and enhancing like what exactly they meant and then backing your own point, that is something really remarkable. I feel again today you were better, but you can again do a lot better. You have that potential. Then came in the rebuttal. Both the strongest orators from both the sides came into play, and I feel the rebuttal was absolutely phenomenal. So that's it from my side.
A very good afternoon to everyone. This is Aditi, your adjudicator. So, I congratulate both the teams and all the teams who have participated in this event. You know, from normally throughout the event, whether in the grounds of speech, whether in the grounds of pointing out the goods and bads of the opposition, you were really, really good. So, coming to my part, as Akash has already mentioned about your fluency and content, I'll be looking more into the pros as well as the cons which you have introduced as a statement. So, our topic was full-scale privatization of mining sector for economic efficiency and innovation. The entire debate revolves around privatization. Is privatization the only way to make mining activities more economy-driven and people-oriented, and ultimate goal is to earn a better income as a whole? So as mentioned, that privatization brings in innovation. So what I believe is Israel privatized? No. But it's still bringing innovation. So obviously the opposition would have countered on this grounds that innovation doesn't depend upon the privatization or public sector is doing it. It depends upon who is involving into it and what bodies are you involving to make it a better served bout. Then we have talked about public-private partnership. If you have talked about public-private partnership, then you have also talked about other PPP, that is people, profit and planet. So that PPP must have included all your mining activities into economic activities along with helping the people to survive and provide a better standard of living to the people as a whole. The one thing which I like of the ruling party is identification of mining categories. Obviously, but the government is already doing the same, so why they need a private body to identify the category of iron ore, bauxite, or whatever is being produced. Risk involvement. The government is responsible for any sort of risk which the labor go through. Recently, we have a tank collapse in Uttarakhand, and the government take the full-fledged responsibility for the same. But do you believe that the private sector will take it? They can provide compensations, but they will not take the responsibility of it as a whole. So that was a positive point which could be added. The government would have added mitigating the disaster risk. How they would have mitigated the disaster risk for betterment of the employees. Yes, advanced mining methods and production protected equipment added the cherry to the entire debate, which I think that it's really good. PSUs, as you want to shift from PSUs to private, do you believe that the PSUs are not functioning well? Or it can be that it could be transferred into the Miniratna companies. It would have added more cherries into it. Now, as both the opposition as well as government has talked about accountability, can accountability be explained is in the grounds of risk, people, or the mines? What was accountability's main focus was? As also want to I would like to highlight what could be a possible way of privatization, as we know that railways has also privatized themselves in one or the other grants. And I think there's an exploitation of labour. Because what the railway employees being paid, even being the locality, is very less what the private contractors are paying to the people. So I believe that there could be exploitation of labourers, which would have been better presented by the opposition. Then I think there's a confusion between gross domestic produce. Gross domestic GDP is the final goods and services which is being produced in a country. So if you are mining something, it's not the final goods and services which is being produced. No. You will have explained it. It's not. Ultimately, it comes under GDP, but currently you're dealing with mining, so it shouldn't have come here. Yes, the gross income, definitely the gross income will increase if privatization will be increased, which I really appreciate. Also, the opposition dwells only into indigenous community and biodiversity and a very little sort of involvement of the employees. I believe that there will be exploitation as well as exploitation of the labor. As if you will get privatized, you will get an opportunity to get into IITs and all the government bodies which provide engineering or other activities related to mining. So I think we will get a better labor force as a whole, which I appreciate of the government, but there could be exploitation in grounds of hazards and in grounds of lower level laborers may be paid less. Also, you talked about that you will be providing housing services and all, but if you will transfer the entire entire industry to the public-private bodies, then I don't think so you will be able to provide those things. That will be up to that body only, and that they will be able to provide or not. That's nice. That's nice. I appreciate your efforts. Also talking about the global trade, which the opposition mentioned, yes, global trade is kindly a very important factor when it comes to mining, but this could be dwelled when if the private company will, as they have mentioned, public-private partnership. So if they are doing public-private partnership, then they will definitely help, the private companies will dwell with the government for that global trade. So that's the point which you have produced, which could be eliminated as a whole. Then what I feel that you have talked about tribal areas. Jharkhand is blessed with mines. We have large amounts of resources. So, as we know, you all being the law students, we have Children Tenancy Act. And you can have, if it is in, if an ST is having that, ST or SC is owning that land, you can only take that land for lease for 5 years. And then you have to continuously renew it. You cannot buy that land as a whole. So, now the company too has to think about it. The government as a whole, because government also cannot buy it. It's completely to the tribal people. It belongs to the tribals. Also, talking about the very unskilled labor, they are included into MG that is Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So when the government owes it, the government provides employment in that ground. And if the private owns it, they don't. So that would have included by the opposition, that would have added cherries into it. That's all I would like to mention. Thank you.
इन लोगों का पॉइंट कुछ पता ही नहीं क्या पता है what you could have but what you said was not exact.
Again, congratulations to both the teams. That was a really good session. The motion, I think, was justified. I think both the teams tried to do justice to the motion. It was amazing. I'm not here to give bad feedback, so don't take it like that. I would like to take this opportunity to firstly say that this event could not have been possible without the efforts of the Literary Society, especially Sanchit, Prekshi, Sufyan, and all the members from the course to the first day. They have worked tremendously hard for over a month to bring this up, and despite of all the adversaries, they have pulled it off. Thank you for the teams for participating. There have been teams from far away, like HP and Youth. There's team from Odisha. There have been teams from within Jharkhand as well. Thank you for putting up with us. I hope that the hospitality was fine. If there was any fault, we would humbly like to apologize for that. Finishing it off with the results would be all declared together in the prize distribution ceremony at 5. So we would request you to wait for, I think, half an hour, so that the guests for the directory, once they come, will announce the results there and there. Thank you for everyone for the patient hearing. Thank you.
फिर से कर लूँगा तो फिर सेंड चार्ज भी नहीं है।